Hello, and welcome to Let's Get Healthy Together. We are your hosts, LaShana Kelley and Angelica. We're the founders of ASAC's Empowerment Group, and today with us we have the beautiful Dr. Duana Russell-Thomas, the Director of Community Experiential Learning Center, also known as CELC, here at Washington University. For those of you who don't know, ASACS is spelled ASACKS. Now, this is an acronym for Angelica and her two sons, Sam and Austin, as well as my two youngest sons, Christian and Kai, as well as myself, Shauna, also known as LaShana. And when we talk about healthy, we're not just talking about physically, we're talking about mentally as well as financially. I will turn things over to Angelica and she will let you know what we have in store for you today.
Thank you, LaShana. As you will probably need to re-look at our video previously, we had Chef Mitchell Pearson, also known as Mr. Mitch, and he was able to give his background and his story about farming. And today we will talk through the farm to table. And in saying that, as LaShana had presented, making it affordable and also it's something easy that you can do. So, when talking to Duana, as she will share with us, defining to us what occupational therapy is and what they do here at CELC, because we want it to be relevant in such a way so that we can understand the collaboration of how it all works. Duana?
Okay, thank you. So, occupational therapy in a nutshell will help professionals when someone has, let's say, a health condition or an injury that keeps them from doing something that they want or they need to do. Then we are trained to understand the medical piece, to understand what it is that they want or need to do, and help them to problem solve and to actually be able to perform. So a lot of times, people will know what they need to do, but can they actually do it? And do they have access to what they need, the equipment they need, the resources that they need, just even the changes in how to do things. But that's what we specialize in so that people can go from, maybe even knowing what to do to actually performing things that mean something to them, the quality of their life, especially if they've lost that ability. So that's who we are, and the CELC itself is it's within the program in occupational therapy at Washington University, and we work with the students. We're trying to develop healthcare professionals that really love the community. And so, how do we learn with the community and from the community about the community? We work with the community, ASACs, right?
Yes, sir.
And so we have the opportunity to partner, the students learn, and then there are certain things that when people want to take that extra step about healthy eating, for instance, and knowing the information, but then how do I translate that into doing? That's some work that the students can help with, and they can learn, and in the at the same time, the people get what they need. Right? So we do that across the board, not only with you, but with other partner organizations in the community to make those changes and to produce people that you want to serve you if you ever have a condition that where you need those services.
Awesome. Thank you for breaking that down. And when you
Thank
were
you.
saying that as well, ASACS is about the education component. And that's why we're here today about the healthy eating. So when you go back and you look at Mr. Mitch, who is a local farmer here in St. Louis, showing you how to grow your own fruits and vegetables. And so we are excited to share with you today. We have Chef Lawrence, who will be able to show you a farm to table sort of thing, growing the fruits and the vegetables and actually preparing them yourselves. So stay tuned. Okay, we're back. Chef Lawrence, glad you have us here today. Looking forward to what you have to share. Earlier, we talked about farm to table, but we do also understand that not everybody can grow everything in the garden and cook it. So there are affordable ways to prepare a meal. And so
Yeah.
we'll let you share a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Chef Lawrence.
Hello, my name is Chef Lawrence. I'm with Siline's Restaurant and Bar in Ballwin, Missouri. I want to take the time to thank ASAC Empowerment Community along with WashU for the opportunity to share and educate the Black and Brown community on farm to table as far as healthy cooking. Easy ways that you can prepare something quick, simple, and easy. Uh, most ingredients you can get are very inexpensive. So you want to make sure that you're not expending more than what you can afford and what the taste of your family. So I'm going to show you a simple, easy recipe that takes no more than maybe 10, 15 minutes to prepare, because I know a lot of times families are on time limits because of the fact their parents are always working, kids are in sports. So something that can be done quick and easy. So today we're doing a vegan stir fry, which consists of zucchini, yellow squash, green bell peppers, onions, and a little bit of tomato. So we're going to saute that and it's going to be done over steamed white rice. You don't necessarily have to use white rice. If you prefer brown rice or wild rice, that's also an option. So as we prepare to get started, we already started your white rice because that's going to take the longest time for you to cook, which we pretty much almost have our white rice pretty much done. White rice usually takes about 10 minutes to cook. A lot of people mess up because they overcook the rice. If you try to do more than 10 minutes, it becomes mushy. So when you get to your 10-minute mark, all you have to do is just turn off the rice and cover it and let it sit. It'll finish cooking the rest of the way. Because we have in culinary what we call carryover cooking. Because anything you cook, once you turn it off, it's still going to continue cooking for another 5 minutes or maybe longer. So that's where a lot of people, especially the brown community, mess up. We overcook everything, where we cook the nutrients and vitamins out of a lot of our vegetables and a lot of our proteins. So if you slightly undercook it, you don't run the risk of killing your vitamins and your proteins in anything that you cook. That goes for anything that you're cooking, whether it be chicken, whether it be steak, whether it be fish. It's the same principle. So now we're taking our rice off because of the fact we're just going to let it sit and it's going to finish cooking. So the next step we're going to do, we're going to start to saute the vegetables. We'll start with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Let
You didn't even measure anything. How do you told me and them that this is 2 tablespoons?
Because 2 tablespoons, if you have it in a squeeze bottle, 2 squirts around your skillet equals out to 2 tablespoons. So you let your oil heat up a little bit, because you never really want to put anything in a cold skillet, because it's pretty much what we call tempering your pot or tempering your skillet or your saucepan, because you're going from hot and you're putting something cold, which actually agitates the vegetables or the protein to wake it up. So if you put it in cold, it really takes a whole lot longer. There is certain things that you can put in cold, because if you're starting with garlic, that'd be one thing that you can put in while your skillet and your oil is cold, because then you won't run the risk of burning it too fast. So our first step, once we get the oil in there and it starts to heat up a little bit, how you can tell your oil is heated up If you take your skillet and it runs, that's how you know your oil is at a warm temperature. So next step, we'll add a little bit of garlic after we put our gloves on. Okay, so now the step we're getting ready to do, we're gonna cut down our vegetables. Easy way there's a couple different ways you can cut them. You can either dice them or what we call a bias. So half of it, I'll dice it. The other half, I'll cut in the bias so you can see what they both look like.
Excuse me, Chef Lawrence. I know you've already done this, but can you please tell them that these have been washed prior to
Yes.
cutting? Okay.
We always wash our vegetables because coming from a farm, they're always in soil, and you don't want to run the risk of any of that being in your food. So you always pre-wash anything before you get ready to cook it or even cut it. So these have already been washed. So now we've sliced it. We're getting ready to dice the zucchini. So pretty much I do like a medium diced zucchini. Reason why I do medium dice because then it becomes bite size to where even a little baby can eat it. So after you get your medium dice, if you have a little bowl, you can go ahead and put that into your bowl. Set the bowl off to the side. So now we'll do cross bias. Cross bias. So it's pretty much where you take your vegetables and you slice it at an angle all the way down. So probably about a 1/4 inch thick, which would be about that size. And you do the same thing. It's just another way of making it look like it's more when it's really the same amount. It's pretty much really more for presentation than anything else. Because a lot of times we eat with our eyes versus pretty much anything else. So this is what the cross bias looks like. As you see, when you plate it up, it'll make it look like it's actually more than what it actually is. So we'll add that into our bowl. And you can do the same thing with the yellow squash. But the trick with the yellow squash is because the yellow squash has a curve to it. So you have to probably do it in stages. So what I do is I usually cut it in half. Start with the fatter half first. We'll do the same thing with the medium dice on the yellow squash. And then the smaller end we'll do at the cross bias. So that way you'll pretty much have about the same effect with both vegetables. So now we'll do the cross bias. Pretty much just cut it in half. The same thing like you did the zucchini. But just be careful not to cut your fingers at the same time. So if you kind of curl your fingers as if you was holding a ball, you will never cut your fingers. Just a little trick. So if you're doing it at home, it also works. So now our next step is our yellow onion, which already kind of pre-unwrapped, took the skin and the stems off. So here we're just going to take it in a julienne. What julienne is pretty much thin strips. No, everybody can't do that. I was just trying to show y'all, once you get more experience, how fast cutting the onion can be. Especially certain seasons, you have onions that are so strong that you have to take a break and then come back to the onion. A trick with onions, if you cross cut it, drop it in ice cold water, that'll take down some of the stench from your onions. So now that we've got our vegetables cut, we're gonna move back and start to getting to saute them up. I already have some vegetables that's already prepped up. So our next step would be to add our garlic. Just depends on how much garlic you want. That is about a tablespoon and a half. You can add that to it. And if you want more, you can always add more. So I always start with the garlic first. You just go for about 30 seconds because you do not want it to burn, because it doesn't take long for it to brown. Next step, as the garlic is going, add in your onions. Let that go for about a minute or so. Constantly just stirring around.
So, Chef Lawrence, I know you had mentioned earlier this is a quick dish for us, and I see that you prepared some of the vegetables.
Yes.
I know that I can be extremely busy. Would you find it also helpful, like it could be a day or so,
Yeah.
just go ahead and prep them, put them in containers, and then
Yeah.
do it?
You can always have your vegetables cut and prepped ahead of time, just to make it easier for yourself. Especially if you have a very busy schedule like most people, you can always, have it cut a little bit. But as you're sauteing it, if it looks like it's a little bit dry, just add a little bit more oil. You don't want a whole lot because you don't want the dish to become too oily. So after we've added the onions, we'll add in our green bell peppers. Pretty much anything you cook is always about building your flavors. A lot of cooking is pretty much just really trial and error, because even when we was in school, we had to learn how to build flavors. Certain things that we thought went well together actually don't. So it's just pretty much knowing what vegetables blend well together. Onions and garlic always goes well together, as long as bell peppers. If you're not fond of green bell peppers, you can always use red or yellow. The yellow ones are a little bit milder than the green, but the red is like in between the green and the yellow. But the red and yellow also gives a little bit better flavor. But the vegetable choice, you don't necessarily have to use any of the vegetables that I'm showing you here. You can always pick and choose which vegetables you prefer based on the taste of your family. So next step, we're adding in our yellow squash, which we already had that pre-diced. But even though you're adding it in, you always want to make sure that they're not too big, because sometimes when you're cutting, they might be a little bit bigger. So we'll add that in. Let that go a little bit for a little bit longer. Slowly add in your salt and pepper, just a little bit at a time. You don't want to, because you don't want it to be too salty. Because I do a mix of salt, pepper, and granulated garlic. I make that like an all-purpose seasoning. You can use that on anything you do at home. You can use that. So that way you don't have to grab salt, grab pepper, grab garlic. You should put it all in one container. You got it all there.
I was just about to ask you about that.
So next we're adding in our zucchini. Let that saute up a little bit. Add a little bit more seasoning. Pretty much cooking is always all about balance. Because each vegetable, each item you add in has a different flavor, but it's always going to all balance out together. pretty much is sometimes when you go to certain restaurants and you order certain things, it'll be good one time, then the next time you order the same product and it's something totally different because the balance of it was off or the shelf life was expired on it or whoever was preparing it wasn't trained properly on how to execute it. So it's pretty much a balance on anything. So pretty much just sauteing it a little bit because we don't want to overcook it. We want it to have a little bit of a crunch to it because they are fresh vegetables. Like I told you earlier, you don't want to kill the vitamins and the nutrients in it. So we just kind of undercook it a little bit. Just get it to where it's just almost cooked. So our next step would be to add in our tomatoes. Most of the time I use fresh tomatoes, but if you're like on a person that's constantly on a busy schedule, you can get organic canned tomatoes. Reason why I say organic, they don't have a whole lot of salt in them, and the organic doesn't use any chemicals. Organic canned tomatoes always uses water. So it's pretty much a water base. What they do is they cook down the tomatoes, add a little bit of water just for storage to keep the tomatoes still fresh and vibrant. So now we're adding our crushed tomatoes. I like to crush, or you can use a crush or stewed tomatoes. And it gives the same effect. Now, if you want to, you can add in fresh herbs, such as Italian seasoning or oregano, fresh thyme, or basil, which always works well with this dish. That's always what I keep at the restaurant. That's always what I keep at my house.
And what restaurant are you referencing?
I'm referencing to Siline's restaurant and bar in Ballwin, which is a new Creole version of new Creole restaurant that is up on the rising. So now that we've added the tomatoes, now you want to add more seasoning. You can add a little bit more now because you're pretty much got all your vegetables in. Just depends on your taste as how much salt and pepper you want. So now that we've got it in, we'll just let that continue to cook until the tomatoes and everything gets hot. As you see, it has now become very colorful. No, I'm not going to toss this one anymore because it has the tomatoes, and if I do, it will be a big mess everywhere. So pretty much just let it go and let it simmer.
So do you let it simmer for what, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then
Yeah,
adjust the temperature as
yeah.
well?
You can keep it at, I usually, once I add my tomatoes in, I usually turn it down to like a medium heat and just let it simmer from there. Normally when you saute your vegetables, I keep my heat up higher because that way the vegetables will go ahead and cook. If you want to, I was trying to get it, but for some reason stores was out of stock on it. If you want to add more protein, you can add tofu, which is a soybean product. It's mainly is fermented soybean that they press together, and it's very high in protein, very easy to prepare. But if you're going to deal with tofu, because of the fact it doesn't have much flavor, I recommend that you marinate the tofu a day before you're getting ready to cook your item. Because of the fact, once you do that, it's going to take on the flavor that you marinated with. You can either fry it or you can saute it like we did the other vegetables. But whichever way you do it, it's going to take on whatever you're cooking. So that's another option. Now you can add eggplant if you like eggplant. That's another option. I know some people like to like eggplant. I do eat eggplant, but it's not one of the things I eat the most. because eggplant is one that you really have to peel the skin off of, because the skin is really not edible. Some people cook with it. In Asian recipes, they use the eggplant with the skin on, for just basically for texture. So now that we've got it almost to where we want it, and if you had it, you can smell it. As Rachel Ray would say, we need smell-o-vision.
So thank you, Chef Lawrence. I think we're at a point where we're gonna let this simmer a little
Yeah.
bit, and then we'll be able to taste.
Yes, ma'am. If I need more rice, I got more rice over there.
Sorry. So we're back. We had the opportunity to taste the stir fry and the rice, which was delicious
Very delicious.
and just was a great opportunity to demonstrate how you can prepare an affordable meal with fresh fruits and vegetables. And also has you go back and reference when we had Mr. Minch on, showing you how you can actually have your own garden. And in saying that, LaShana, do you have anything else to add?
I do. I want to say definitely a dish I recommend trying. It was very delicious. You can find Chef Lawrence at Siline's restaurant in Ballwin, and Siline is spelled SILINE''S. We also want to thank you once again, Washu, for allowing us here at the CELC, which is Community Experiential Learning Center. We want to invite you to utilize the space with the community. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Duana Russell-Thomas, and she can definitely fill you in on any information that you may need to further use the space, utilize the space.
I have another idea. Not really another idea, but just want to reiterate the importance about education. And so that's why LaShana and I do what we do to educate and inform and to provide the resources as what you've seen today.
Yes, so we want to thank everyone again. Chef Lawrence for the great recipe and the great early lunch that we all received today, as well as everyone here at WashU with their assistance. And thank you so much for joining us with Let's Get Healthy Together. See you next time.
Next time.